Good evening, Sukihoto. Welcome to this evening's Q&A forum number 4. I normally have this on Mondays, but for this week, it has been postponed to today, Wednesday. But in future, we will resume them all on Monday evening, unless something crops up. So thank you very much for joining us. Welcome. And this evening is Q&A forum number 4. We will deal with 4 very major questions. These are very quite detailed answers I'm going to provide. One of these questions I've already given a little bit last week, but this time one of the viewers asked additional details, so I'm going to elaborate on it. So without further ado, let's move on with the first question. Right. The first question came from a devotee in India who was curious about why that when he sees the real thing, he gets aroused. For example, in the case of a man, he sees a naked woman, a real life naked woman, so he gets aroused. And then when he sees a picture of a naked woman, he also gets aroused. His question is basically, why do we get aroused by pictures when we normally like to be aroused by the real thing, the physical object in front of us? So the question is, when a man sees exciting object in front, for example, a naked woman, man is aroused, right? So sexually aroused. Yet, when man sees a printed picture of the naked woman, he is still aroused, even though the printed picture is not the real thing. I'll just expand this screen a little. Yeah, even though the printed picture is not the real thing. So he considered the real thing as the real naked woman right in front of him. So he's curious why that when we see a picture, we get equally aroused. So the question is, surely one gets aroused only by seeing the real thing in the physical world? Well, the interesting answer to this question is nothing is real. All is an illusion. And I'm going to explain that in a moment. Right? So this is basically the question that why do we get aroused by printed picture? Right? Even though the printed picture is not so-called the real thing, right? So the question here is, one gets aroused only by seeing the real thing in physical world. Well, one gets aroused easily by anything one sees, whether it is a printed picture, whether it is a movie, whether it is a computer image, or whether it's the real person right in front, the real naked woman in front. So this is really requiring an answer from an experiential perspective. So let's think of it from an experiential point of view, that all is an experience, right? Instead of trying to make everything existential, right? There's a physical object, there is an eyeball, so on. There is an experience involved. So let's dig into this question. How are we going to deal with this question? Basically, there are 2 things we need to consider: perception and reaction. So the question actually was touching on 2 things: perception and reaction. Right? So those are the 2 parts of this experience: the experience of seeing the object, whether it's a real person in front or it's an image or a picture, printed picture. So that experience of seeing is perception. Then there is this experience of emotions, the arousal and the reaction. Emotion is a broad thing. It's not just one thing. A lot of people think emotion is how we feel. Basically, it's not just in the mind or the heart. It's actually involving the whole body. So this is the experience of emotions. Being aroused, the body gets excited, and then the mind gets disturbed. So that is the emotions part. And then we begin to react in terms of getting excited or lusting or hating something we don't like. So these are the two aspects that we have to deal with, right? So first we look at the perception part, right? What we perceive is never the real thing, but only a mental image of the real thing. In other words, when we perceive something, it's really just a mental image arising in the mind, right? So in both cases, whether we see the physical object in front, the naked woman right in front of us, so-called the real thing, or we see a printed picture of that same object, that means a printed picture of the naked woman, we are not perceiving the real thing. In other words, whatever object we're looking at, it is not that object that is entering our eyes, creating the perception. The perception is not created by the object. A lot of people think, oh, this object produced a perception. No, that is not correct. We perceive a mental image of whatever it is in front of us in both cases. Therefore, this mental image arising, that is really, in a way, you could call this an illusion, right? An illusion is when you have an image of what you think you are perceiving. So let's look at the experience of seeing. Experience arises dependent on the presence of necessary conditions. So for the sake of keeping this wholesome, I'm not going to put a naked woman there. I'll just put a dog in place of a naked woman. So let's take the example of someone seeing a dog. So the experience of seeing the dog. Experience arises dependent on the presence of necessary conditions. So in other words, certain conditions have to be met in order for us to experience something. So in this case, to be able to see the dog, first, there must be light, right? Well, the dog has to be there. The person, of course, has to be looking at the dog, but there must be light. Light is a necessary condition to help us see. Without light, we can't see. So in other words, if it is completely pitch dark, we cannot see anything. Right? True or not? If it is completely pitch dark, if you walk into a room that is completely pitch dark, you can see nothing inside. So therefore, you need light. If someone turns on the light, then you can see what's going on inside the room. In the same way, with that dog in front of us, and there is light, then light is reflected from the dog and enters into the eyes. Enters into the eyes. So therefore, the eye is picking up reflected light. So the reflected light enters the eye and stimulates the light-sensitive cells inside the eyeball, at the back of the eyeball, called the retina, where there's a lot of light-sensitive cells, optic cells. They are being stimulated by light entering, and that triggers impulses being fed to the brain, because that's how this sense organ of eyeball works. The impulses sent to the brain produce the mental image. So therefore, light has to enter and stimulate the eyeball, the back of the eyeball, and you are paying attention, then you become aware. With that, there is this process of perception. The Pali term for that is panchakanda, the 5 aggregates. It produces a mental image, the rupa. So very importantly, realize that the word rupa means the appearance of the object in your mind. Rupa very often is mistakenly translated as the object out there. You know, looking at the dog is the rupa. No. Or the form of the dog is the rupa. No. Rupa is really not the form. Rupa is really the appearance arising in your mind of the mental image of what was perceived by the eye. So the sense organ picked up the light, transmitting the impulses to the brain. The process of perception produced this mental image arising, right, in your mind. So now you are aware that there is a dog, or rather you're aware you've seen the dog. Having seen the dog, this is perception arising. Vijnana, Chaku Vijnana. This is the perception of the dog. Now, Vijnana is often translated as consciousness, but actually when it comes to the five senses, the Vijnana of the five senses is really the perception, right? The sense organ perception. So in this case, Chaku Vijnana is the eye perception. Now, the mental image arises, and the mind works in very interesting way. It projects the notion, the concept that, oh, there is a dog out there, because that's what the mind produces. The mind projecting this concept. The mind creates the concept. The concept of this object is out there, identified as a dog out there. So this rupa arising, we identify it as a dog, the nama. And it is out there. It's the world out there, the loka. So this is really the experience of seeing. So we can only call this an experience. And this experience produces a knowledge, produces an awareness. Now there is a knowledge of having seen the dog. So this is called Dharma. Now in this case, this word Dharma has many meanings. One of the meaning, of course, it's used to refer to the Buddha Dharma. But in this case, it's referring to the awareness of an object called a dog out there, and that awareness. Now, when such an awareness arises, such an experience arises, the mind works in very strange way again. It breaks that experience into two parts, right? So when this experience arises, the mind thinks, I see a dog out there, right? That's what the mind is aware of. I see a dog out there. And interestingly, that is where the mind breaks this experience into two parts. Right? First, this breaking of experience into two parts is called the dichotomy of experience. There is an objective experience, which is the perception of the dog, and there is a subjective experience. So the perception of the dog out there, that is the objective experience. But at the same time, you are aware, and there is a notion that I am aware, I see, and that is the subjective experience. So the subjective experience becomes the atta, the self. The objective experience becomes the world, loka. So this self is I see. So therefore, I see a dog out there. And that's the dichotomy of that experience. The I see is subjective. Out there is the objective. Now, looking at this, therefore, you can see whether it is a real dog out there or it is actually just a picture of a dog out there. It is still the same experience, that there is a mental image arising of the image of a dog. So that experience is broken into the two parts, right? So nothing you see is real. Nothing you see is real by the time you become aware of it, because it becomes a mental image, it becomes a perception, and you begin to interpret it and add meaning to it. So let's move on from there. You see, when a naked woman stands in front of you, what your mind perceives is not the naked woman, but the mental image caused by light reflected from the body of the naked woman. Just like what I showed you, the light reflected from the dog. So therefore, the mind becomes aware, and that because of this mental image arising. So we are not actually seeing the real thing. We are seeing light reflected from the body of the object. Light reflected from the body of the naked woman. In the same way, when you see a printed picture of the naked woman, what your mind perceives is the mental image caused by light reflected from the print picture entering your eyes. So in other words, you become aware, right, with this mental image arising, right? And that arises because light is reflected from the printed picture entering the eyes. You are not seeing the printed picture, just as you're not seeing the naked woman. You're seeing light reflected from the naked woman. Now, if there was something blocking the light entering your eyes, can you see the naked woman? Even though he's standing in front of you? If somebody puts a blindfold in front of you, are you able to see the naked woman? No. You see? So you're not really seeing the naked woman. You're seeing light reflected by the naked woman. If there's any interference to that light, you will not be able to see. In the same way, you're seeing light reflected from the print picture, and if there's any interference, you can't actually see the print picture. So whether it is a printed picture or whether it is the real thing, so to speak, all you're seeing is light reflected from the object entering the eyes. That's what you're seeing. And this is called recognition. And this process is the process of perception, the panchakanda, producing this mental image, the rupa, arising in your mind of the perceived object. This perceived object is the objective experience. And the mind, the mind is made of three parts. The Buddha has described the mind with three words. Vijnana is one word, so that is the perception arising. Mano is another word, that is the cognitive process. Now, what the cognitive process does is that when this mental image arises, it searches through your memory, and this is very fast, categorized memory of past experiences, past fluid experiences. I say fluid because that past experience, the memory of past experience is constantly changing. Nothing is static. In your mind, your memory of anything is constantly evolving or changing or transitioning. So nothing remains static, even your memory. Everything is fluid, constantly changing, right? So this is really what's happening. And and it looks for a categorized match. In other words, it's not looking for a specific match. At first, it is looking for a categorized match, meaning that it starts to compare with your memory of all the past naked women that's been seen, and then you begin to recognize, oh, it's a naked woman. The same thing, whatever object that is presented to you, you interpret it in a categorized manner, the category it belongs to. Like, for example, I'll show you this, right? This is a mouse. Well, those of you who have not seen me speak in public, in person, right, you would probably have never seen this mouse before. And yet, when you look at this, you know it's a mouse. Why? Because you have seen hundreds of mouse before, or mice, computer mouse. You have seen hundreds of them in the past. So you have a memory of the category of mouse, categorized memory of computer mouse. So when you see this, straight away you can tell, oh, this is a computer mouse. Because you have a memory, a categorized memory of all the mouse in the world. You have not seen this particular one. And now that you've seen it a couple of times, you know this is a mouse. Now I'll show you another one. How about this one? I think many of you would not have seen this one because this is my private mouse that I use at home. I don't take it out of the house. So none of you would have ever seen this mouse before. And yet, what is this? You know it's a mouse because your mind stores memory in a categorized manner. So therefore, you remember things by category first. Sorry. It's when you go further that you begin to identify specifically, oh, this is a red mouse, this is a blue mouse, this is Billy Tan's mouse, or this naked woman is Jenny, this naked woman is Mary, this naked woman is Elizabeth, and so on. So you begin to identify later on, but initially the first match is a category. And this is really what's going on. The same way when you see a picture, the same thing arises in your mind. So awareness of a perceived object is the vijnana. And if it is the eye awareness, eye perception, chakku vijnana, okay? And if it is the ear hearing something, then you have the ear awareness, then that becomes a sota vijnana, so on, okay? So awareness is this. So the Buddha used three words to describe the mind. Vijnana, mano, and then the third word is chitta. I'll come to chitta in a moment. So when you begin to identify the object, you give it a name, you give it a label. You call it a computer mouse, you call it a dog, you call it a naked woman. So you've given it a name, nama, to the image in your mind, rupa. And therefore, this identification of the object is the nama rupa. So let's look at a flow chart. That process of experience of seeing. Experience is a chain reaction. So when things happen out there in the environment, it stimulates our sense organs. And then the vijnana arises because of the five aggregate, the panchakanda. Now you have a vijnana of what was seen in terms of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. And to put it all together, there is the mano, okay? So when you see an object like that, a mental image arises in your mind. Ah, there is a dog. You see the dog. And that mental image arises. That's the rupa. Then to put it all together, the cognitive process is the mano. It begins to refer, to categorize memory of past experiences, fluid past, and tries to find a match. And when it finds a match, this process of looking for a match is really the process of identification called papancha. Right? So papancha is really identifying the perception and then categorizing it and giving it a label, creating a concept out of it. And this concept is the recognition. This is the process of cognition. You have this recognition of that dog. And this is the concept the mind now creates. The concept of an entity identified as dog out there. So that label, dog, is the Dharma. So now the mind has created this concept that you have now seen that dog. Whether you see the real dog or a picture of the dog, the concept is the same. I see the dog. Of course, when you go deeper into the detail, then you see, I see the picture of a dog. Okay, so concept is basically identifying what has been perceived by your sense organ. Right? So now the Buddha used three words to describe the mind. Then the mind is not a static thing. It is really a process of experience. So there are three parts of this mental experience called the mind. First, the word vijnana refers to the perception. And this perception arises because of the panchakanda. It is the awareness of what was perceived through the sense organs. And then the second part of the mental experience is mano, the cognitive process, which produces cognition and conception. Cognition is when it is able to identify, categorize identification of the perceived image. And the perceived image is rupa. The process of categorized identification is called papancha. And this identification occurs by assigning a name or a label to the perception. And the name or the label is called nama. Now, a lot of Western translator has mistranslated nama and rupa, because they call rupa as the object or the form, and they call nama as the mentality. No. In Sanskrit, in Sinhalese, in Pali, in the real meaning of Pali words, and in Eastern languages derived from Sanskrit, like Malay, Bahasa Malaysia. In Malaysia, we know that. The word rupa means appearance. The word nama means name or label. You give a name or a label to something. My nama is Billy, because that's my name. So the word nama means name. The word rupa means appearance, not form, not object, appearance. And where is this appearance? In the mind, right? So that is really what nama, rupa is referring to, the appearance in the mind, and then a label is given. That is cognition. And with that cognition, cognizing the experience, now that experience is called Dharma. Now you have experience seeing, and that is the Dharma of seeing. Then you have concept of what you have seen. And with concept, it leads to choices. Because when you have a concept of something, you begin to choose what do you want to do with it. If it is something that arouses and makes you feel good, then you might want to choose to do something to get it. Or if it makes you upset, unhappy with it, you might want to get rid of it. So it produces choices in your mind. And dealing with these choices is the chitta. So the chitta is really the affective process of mind, which leads to mood and temperament. Now, these are the translations I'm explaining based on what I've studied and learned from Bhante Punnaji, and also from my own research of how the mind works from neuroscience. All this makes sense. They are very consistent with the findings of neuroscience, how the neuroscience has described the mind having three parts of the experience, exactly the way the Buddha described it. So chitta is the affective process, which leads to mood and temperament. Mood is how you feel about something. Mood. So in other words, if something that makes you feel good, then it puts you in a good mood. If it's something that you don't like, it puts you in a bad mood. You see, mood is how you feel about it, whether you like it, you don't like it, right? So the liking is dependent on your own past experience. And it's also temperament. Temperament is the urge to react, wanting to react. So in other words, there is this urge to react, the emotional reaction. And emotional reaction is the tanha to feeling. The Vedana is the feeling arising from the cognition. And that leads to mood and temperament, right? So leads to whether you feel good or you don't feel good, and the urge to react. So in the case of a young man, single young man who has no girlfriend, for instance, the moment he sees a naked woman for the first time publicly, and he gets very excited. So that excitement is his reaction, his reaction, his sexual reaction. And he gets excited and he feels aroused. And he goes into this strange aroused mood, right? Mood of arousal. And then there's an urge. Now, he might go crazy. He wants to do something. So that urge to do something is the temperament. All this leads to our emotional states. That means, are we excited? Are we lustful? Are we hateful? Depending on what we experience. And at the same time, whatever it is that we experience, we begin to personalize it and say, I feel it, I like it, right? And that process of personalizing is called upadana. That is personalizing the experience, which leads to the notion of a self-centered existence. And this is the notion of bhava tanha. That's why for people who are not enlightened, we are constantly thinking we exist. Now, this upadana is this personalizing the experience. Let me give you an example. Like just now, when you see a dog, what arises in your mind? I see a dog. What's the first word? I, you see? Self-centered. If you were in a shopping mall, walking around the shopping mall, and suddenly you see your good friend in the distance, your best friend happened to go to the same mall, and you see him in the distance walking towards you, what arises in your mind? I see my best friend coming, you know. What's the first word? I. So we personalize it, and that's what makes us very self-centered. Because every experience, we have a tendency to personalize it and say, I feel it, I like it, I don't like it. Every experience, right? So this is really how the mind works, with these three parts of the mind. And therefore, the young man who sees a naked woman, this is his reaction. His reaction is tanha. Tanha can be lust, tanha can be anger or hatred, and tanha can be delusion of self-centered existence. Right? So his reaction is the tanha. So I hope that is clear. I try to keep it simple. I don't want to go so too deep into it because I could go on this previous page here. This Okay, this here, I could actually go very deep in, but I'm not going to go that way because it'll take too long to try to go deeper into this. But this is really a nutshell what's happening. Now let's look at it graphically, a flow chart, how it all works. Things happening out there, external stimulus stimulate our sense organs, and then we become aware of something. Now we get aroused because of perception. And in this case, let's say perception of threat or conflict, and then we get anger arising. The most common, the most common reaction, the most popular reaction of anything that we experience is anger and hatred towards any perception of threat or conflict, because we interpret it as something threatening or something that is a conflict, and that arouses the emotion, right? We could also interpret it as something to be very lustful, something that arouses our sexual desires, right? And therefore, our sexual emotions are aroused also. So when emotions are aroused, there is a part of the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala gets triggered and creates a chain reaction of hormones flooding the body, and then the body begins to feel some discomfort. So it is the bodily discomfort that is being felt, and that is the fight or flight reaction in the body. Whether it is something lustful or something hateful, they are very similar bodily reaction. Hormones are being released and the body begins to change. Organs begin to react, heart beat faster, breathing deepens, and blood pressure rises. Right? So whether you see something exciting or something hateful, your blood pressure will rise, right? Right? Young man seeing a beautiful naked woman, his blood pressure rises, goes through the roof. Let's say a very strict religious person who does not agree with people going naked and suddenly sees a naked woman, he would also experience some blood pressure rising because of anger and hatred towards what he has just seen. So all these are reactions in the body, and that causes our habitual emotional reactions if we are not mindful. And this is the mental disturbance now. Up to that point, it was a physiological disturbance. Now it's a mental disturbance. And then we begin to experience either greed, anger, hatred, fear, worry, anxiety, jealousy, conceit, shame, and so on. These are all emotional reactions. Now, if we're not careful, this emotional reaction get out of control, and then we begin to personalize it, cling on to it, and it actually feeding these emotions with our imagination, memory, and expectations. Then the mind begins to proliferate, mental proliferation. And this makes our reaction even worse, right? So this part where the body changes, this is the stress reaction. And this part where we begin to react, this is our emotional chain reaction. So I hope this has explained now, right, the perception, whether it is a picture or it is the real thing. You see, if you see, let's say if people who love certain foods, let's say a pizza lover, he sees pictures of pizza restaurant, he also gets excited. Oh, this pizza restaurant, they have this pizza. Oh, I like that pizza. But it's all pictures. Sometimes it's only words, right? Different types of pizza being described and the person gets excited. So whether it is seeing the actual thing or seeing what is printed on a piece of paper or seeing what appears on a computer screen or a handphone screen, you still can get aroused, right? Because the mind interprets and reacts. So, oh, this is a bit out. Never mind. Don't worry about that bottom part. Okay, the Buddha actually called this emotions dominate the world. Emotions create distress. Emotion is that one thing to which all are spellbound. Right? So I'm sorry about the font getting out because I moved it to another computer to display, and unfortunately I didn't check it properly. Okay, never mind. I'll read it out. Emotions dominate the world. Emotions create distress. Emotion is that one thing to which all are spellbound. That means when emotion arises, it dominates us. It controls us. If we are not mindful, if we don't tame the emotion, it dominates us. Emotion creates distress. Distress is mental suffering. We begin to feel mental anxiety or whatever. And emotion is that one thing to which all are spellbound. So if we don't tame our mind, we will be controlled by emotions, and emotions will dominate us, and we will be spellbound by emotions, and we will react in emotional way. That's really what the Buddha was trying to warn us. Okay, so it's really emotions doing all that, and these three parts of the mental experience would explain that. Right. So these choices, how can we overcome this? How can we tame our mind? Well, we cannot stop seeing something if it is right in front of us, right? If some naked woman walks past in front of us, we can't stop seeing it. It's there. Our eyes are open. Classic example, let's say I'm driving. I come to the traffic light and it's red, so I stop in front of the traffic light. Then I see pedestrian crossing the traffic, crossing in front. And suddenly a naked woman walks in front of my car, crosses. And then I get aroused, right? As a man, you get aroused. Whether you're young or old, the man would still get aroused by a naked woman. And maybe a woman will also get aroused in the opposite way. Maybe some women become angry seeing other naked women walking around. So therefore, the arousal can either be lust or hatred. In the case of a young man, most likely it is lust. In the case of a very strict religious person, then it might be anger or hatred. And whatever it is, we can't stop the happening up to that point. But what we can do is the choices we make. How do we respond to what happens? We cannot always stop what happens. Nobody can stop the coronavirus pandemic. Not one person, not the smartest scientist in the world can stop the coronavirus pandemic. But we have choices. What are some of the choices? When we go out on the street, we wear masks. We keep social distancing. We use sanitizer to prevent getting infected, right, as much as possible. So we do these things. We have choices to respond to what we experience. We can't always control what we experience, but we can actually control our responses. So therefore, it's choosing wholesome, helpful, peaceful, harmonious thoughts when we experience something that arouses our emotions. Right? And that, okay, go back to that. This choosing happens in the thinking mind, the mano. The mano chooses. Because if you don't use your thinking mind to choose, then the emotion will choose for you. And emotions will make you react emotionally. So in the case of a young man seeing a naked woman, if he does not use his thinking mind to choose what to do, sitting in the car and then see this naked woman walking across, the man get excited, he might honk and look and then get distracted. And when the light turns green, he doesn't even know and all that. So he's allowing emotions to take control. So therefore, we got to use our thinking mind to take control of our responses. So now we can transform a vicious cycle of emotion into virtuous cycle of composure. So when things happen out there, okay, it produces some perception of threat or conflict or lust or hatred or whatever, and emotions are aroused, the body feeling uncomfortable. Normally, what we can do is change the way we interpret the circumstances. Instead of the young man thinking, oh, this naked woman going by, I'm getting so excited. I want to go and hug her. I want to go and hold her. I want to get to know her. Change your interpretation to perception of peace and harmony. And by doing that, you can then cultivate emotional composure. Your emotions become tamed. Your emotion become more composed, and your mind becomes more settled and calm and tranquil. And then your body will feel comfortable. Your body won't get excited by all the hormones being released. And with that, you're now able to think how you want to respond. So the first thing is to arrest your arousal by simply relaxing. And then having purposeful, wholesome response using the process of think, T-H-I-N-K, that it is truthful, helpful, improving the situation for you, or it is necessary, or it's kind. And then you will cultivate wellness, comfort, peace, and happiness. So this is really the how to solve that problem of emotional arousal. Learn to relax and then think. So you're using your thinking mind. You're no longer allowing your emotions to take control. You're no longer spellbound by your emotions, like Buddha, what the Buddha warned us about. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. I'm not trying to go so deep. I want to answer the question that was posted. Right. So if we don't do that, this is what happens: self-affliction of mental suffering. And the Buddha warned us that whatever harm one enemy may do to another, or one hater to another, it is our ill-directed emotions that inflict upon ourselves a greater harm. That means it's the way our emotions are directed. When we are aware of arousal and we allow and we do something about it, choosing wholesome thoughts, then we are not allowing the emotions to go out of control. But if we allow emotions to go out of control and spellbound and control us, then we go into mental proliferation, right? And therefore, imagination, memory, expectation arise and take control of us. We become under the spell of our emotional excitement. So I hope that answers the first question. All right. Now, if you have any further question to my explanation, please feel free to post it. Then I will respond to it. If it is something straightforward, I can respond to it later. If it is something a bit more complicated, I will prepare a proper response in the next Q&A forum. Okay. So this is the end of that first question. Now let's look at the second question. So the next question, it was someone who attended last week's sharing and was a little bit, did not quite understand clearly. So he said, in your last Q&A, you spoke about 4 steps to prepare for meditation. I am a little lost. Can you elaborate about the 4 steps? Must we sit cross-legged? How to relax the body? And how to slow down the breathing? Because last week I spoke about slowing down the breathing, relaxing the body and slowing down the breathing, but I didn't actually go deep into the actual practice. So this evening's sharing on this, I'm going to do a little bit deeper into the actual practice, the practical aspect of it, okay? So first things first, what is this thing called meditation? It came from this Pali word Bhavana. And the word meditation is not a good word. It's really cultivation and development. So Bhavana, it is by being conscious all the time that we can control our emotions. The constant practice of being conscious is what the Buddha called development or Bhavana. So Bhavana, Bhante Punaji has clearly explained the word Bhavana really means development of the mind. And that also helps to develop the body. So by cultivating the mind, then the body can be controlled, right? First, relax the body and then cultivate the mind and develop it. And then we can control our behavior, our sila. So this is really what Bhavana is the development of the mind. Okay, I spoke about 4 simple steps to prepare for meditation. So a lot of people ask this question. Says, I try to meditate and I sit there, and then my mind starts to run around like a monkey jumping from tree to tree. I sit there and then my body gets very tensed. I sit there and then my mind is agitated. Or I sit there and I get very drowsy. I'm going to fall asleep when I try to meditate, you know. one of the reasons why people experience all these things, what we call the 5 hindrances, it's because they didn't prepare when they start the meditation. They thought, okay, meditation, all right, sit there, right, and straighten my back, close my eyes, observe my breathing, and then after a while, I get drowsy. Or straighten my back, close my eyes, observe my breathing. I'm supposed to meditate 45 minutes, but is it already 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Is it 45 minutes yet? You know, the mind is agitated and all that because we are not preparing. And there are 4 simple steps to help you get started. First is posture. Very important, because if your posture is no good, if you don't have a proper posture, you get either tired, you get agitated, you get very tense, your body has a lot of tension, you may even experience all kinds of pain, right? So first, in posture, there are 3 important things to deal with. The sitting comfortably in a soft posture, that means the way you sit down has to be comfortable. Centralize on sitting bone, and this is where a lot of people go wrong when they do sitting meditation, right? Quite a number of mistakes a lot of people make. For example, they use a meditation cushion that is too soft. When it is too soft, then you are not really sitting on top of your sitting bone. You're sitting on top of the muscles around your sitting bone, and that can cause a lot of numbness and all kinds of pain. Right? So centralize on the sitting bone and then straighten your back. And this is again what a lot of people do. Straighten your back, so they tense up the back and they thought, now I'm straightening the back. But actually they're applying tension to the back. I'm going to teach you some techniques to overcome all this. The next thing is relaxation. You must prepare and relax yourself first before you start meditating. A lot of people don't do that. Straight away they want to meditate, they want to focus and observe and pay attention to their breathing, and then they are not relaxed yet. The body is still very tense. You know, so in other words, you need some time to prepare before you start the meditation. You don't just sit down, close your eyes and meditate and that's it, you know. Then you get all kinds of tension, agitation, laziness, drowsiness, and so on. Then breathing. You need to prepare with your breathing. Allow your breathing to flow naturally before you start to meditate. Because if you just came in from outside and you're now breathing hard, you sit down, your breathing will go very hard. You're not actually preparing yourself. So you must allow your breathing to slow down naturally. And I'm going to show you the steps. And finally, when you're ready, only when you are ready with the first 3 steps, then you begin to bring your attention inwards. And do it gently. Just bring your attention inwards. Most likely, you're going to have to close your eyes so that you don't get distracted by what is being, what is triggering your sight, your sense of sight. So with your eyes closed, you are able to then focus on other things. So this is really 4 steps. Right? So let's take a look at each one. First, posture. Sit comfortably in a soft posture. Now, this verse, it appears in many sutras. Whenever the Buddha spoke about meditation, he more or less says basically the same thing. He says, here a bhikkhu gone to the forest or to the root of a tree or to an empty hut sits down. Having folded his legs crosswise, set his body erect, established mindfulness in front of him, ever mindful he breathes in, mindful he breathes out. This is basically the same phrase that the Buddha used throughout in many sutras when he refers to the activity or the process of meditation. So let's examine it one by one. Right? Gone to the forest or to the root of a tree or to an empty hut. Usually they like to meditate in the forest because in ancient times, forests are very quiet places. You don't have vehicles running around. Today, it's no fun. Sometimes you think you want to meditate in a forest, and you go to a park or a forest somewhere, and you sit down, and before you know it, some people riding on jungle bikes or whatever, they will be going by, brum, 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 going past, disturbing you. Right? Modern days, it's very hard to find a peaceful place to meditate. To the root of a tree. So in those days, again, they go to near the forest. You have a huge tree where you get shelter, and then you sit by the root. Or to an empty hut. Empty hut meaning you go to a place like an empty room, so that nobody disturbs you, and sits down. Now, I want to point out very importantly, during the time of the Buddha in India, and in fact around that time throughout Asia, East Asia, furnitures are not commonly present in houses. Chairs and tables are not common. People sit down on the floor, or maybe they have a small little bench. There are no such thing as a nice little dining table and dining chairs. We don't have, those things are only found in the houses of very wealthy people during the time of the Buddha. So in other words, during the time of the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, the average house does not have a proper dining table, dining chairs, sofa, or living room bench, living room settee. None of those. People sit on the floor. Sometimes they might sit on a stool. And this is why meditation is sitting on the floor, because in those days, there was no chair to sit on. So therefore, I want to point out here, if you have difficulty sitting on the floor, now I never had that difficulty until a couple of years back when I injured my back, and I started to have a lot of back pain. So I since then, I was unable to really sit for very long on the floor. Therefore, I have to meditate on the chair. I've chosen now to continue, and it works. When I sit on the chair, I can meditate. When I sit on the floor, it is quite unbearable because of my injury. I have that back injury. Okay. So therefore, those of you who have this problem, it's okay to use a chair, to sit on the chair. You don't really have to sit on the floor, right? Realize that meditation is not about the body. Meditation is about what you do to the mind. So therefore, you can sit down on a chair. If you sit on the floor, of course, you would like to fold your legs crosswise. But if you sit on the chair, you don't have to cross your legs. You just place your legs comfortably, okay? Set his body erect. This means straighten your back, okay? Straightening your back. And then having straightened your back, establish mindfulness in front of him. Basically, you begin to be aware of what is happening, okay? So this is establishing this mindfulness. You become aware of your bodily condition, your feelings, and how you feel, and with every bodily sensation, the feelings. And ever mindful, breathe in, mindful, breathe out. I'm going to show you later on what Bhante Punnaji says about these things, okay? So it's very important that this is basically the same instruction throughout many sutras, okay? So when you sit on the chair, for instance, always sit with your back straight and not slouch. Now, I'm going to explain later on also, not lean back, because when you lean back, it does something to you. I'll explain that later. So you must sit straight and not lean back onto the back of a chair. In other words, if you have a nice armchair, you can lean back. Don't use that, because when you try to meditate like that, you're going to fall asleep. So the correct posture is your back is straight and you sit down. Very importantly, always keep the back straight. There's no alternative to that. So keep your back straight, and let's listen to what Bhante Punnaji has to say about that.
Meditation is not something that you do with your body. Meditation is something that you do with your mind. That's the first thing to understand. And the other thing is, one very important thing about this meditation is that if you keep your back straight, whether you are standing or whether you are sitting or even when you are lying down, to keep your back straight, that is very important because it brings all the parts of the body in the proper position so that the mind can be kept in the proper way when the body is in that erect position. So when you sit, the important thing is to sit with your back straight. That's the important thing. And so that how you have your legs, whether you fold your legs or whether you straighten your legs, or all that is just in order to keep your back straight. So if you can keep your back straight, now during the time of the Buddha, and especially people in India, they always sat on the floor. In India, they didn't have these chairs to sit on. These chairs really came after the Westerners or the British came. Otherwise, the Indian people were mainly sitting on the floor. And so, this is why that cross-legged position. But nowadays, because people are more used to sitting on chairs, I think sitting on the chair and somehow keeping your leg in a proper position is the best thing. The main thing is to keep your back straight. That is the important thing there. But there is one important thing that I noticed when in my own practice in meditation was that if you sit on the floor with that cross-legged, what is called the lotus position or even the half lotus position, you can remain in that position for a long period without trouble, but you have to get used to it. Only if you are used to it, that benefit is there. So that can be helpful, but still you can sit on a chair and do it. That is the important thing. The main thing is keeping the mind purified, not the body. The body will become purified when the mind is purified.
Bhante Punaji said that it is not about purifying the body. The body will be purified when the mind is purified, meaning that the body will become relaxed and tranquil and comfortable and peaceful when your mind is tamed, your mind is stilled, right? Now, so basically, it is really about keeping the back straight. That's very important, and not lean back towards the back of the chairs. So do be careful when you meditate, and also be careful not to sit on a cushion that is too soft. Don't sit on a sofa that is very soft. Find a firm chair. It can be wooden, but perhaps a very thin padding is better. Otherwise, it might be a bit too hard. So keep the back straight is the most important thing to do. So very importantly, how do we keep the back straight and what is the position? There is a sitting bone you have to be aware of, which is at the bottom of your pelvic bone. And I won't go into the detailed scientific explanation of bone structures, but if you can see in the first picture, on the right side there are these two persons, one person with the back not straightened, and then he's not sitting on the sitting bone. He's at the back of the sitting bone. It gets very tiring and painful. But if you have your back straight, then you're sitting right on top of the sitting bone. What you can do is when you sit on the chair, now especially not a chair with very soft cushion, it has to be either a wooden chair or something with a very thin layer of cushion, right? Not soft, something thin, so that you can actually feel, you rock your butt a little bit, and then you can realize where you're right on top of the sitting bone, and then you can straighten your back on that spot. Right? There's a sweet spot. Once you roll your buttocks until you hit that sweet spot, it becomes very easy to straighten your back, and you won't get so tired so easily. Right? So these are the various positions you have to watch out for. Don't curve your backbone. Keep it straight, right? And I'm going to show you a technique, very easy. Straighten your back naturally without, with this shoulder exercise. Now, when people say, keep your back straight or straighten your back, what do most people do? They apply some tension, and then, they use muscles to pull back and straighten the back. That's not a good way of doing it. If you roll your butt a bit until you're sitting right on top of your sitting bone to straighten your back without exerting tensions, here is a simple little technique. First, right, you roll your shoulder forward 3 times gently. Don't do it very hard. Do it very gently 3 times and slowly as you breathe in. After breathing in, on the 3rd time, you let go your breath, right? Then pause and let go your breath. Next, you do the reverse. Roll your shoulder back 3 times slowly, and you will start to hear, for those of you who don't do this often, you will start to hear your shoulders going crack, 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 crack. And that's good, because then you are actually loosening the joint. Then you become very relaxed. So you roll your shoulder back 3 times as you breathe in, pause for a moment, and then exhale and release your breath. The 3rd one, you repeat what was done in number 1. Roll forward 3 times as you breathe in. And on the 3rd time, you pause your breath a moment, and then you exhale. Now your shoulders are loosened. And on the 4th one, very gently and softly, don't exert too much effort, raise it up, pull it back slightly, and just allow it to drop down. Notice that when you do that, your back is now perfectly straight, right? So let's repeat this one more time, right? Sit on your sitting bone. Now, step 1, roll it forward 3 times gently as you breathe in. And on the 3rd time, pause for a moment and exhale. Gently, don't have to put too much effort. Now roll it backwards 3 times. And breathing in. On the 3rd time, pause for a moment and exhale. Repeat the 1st time, roll forward 3 times. Breathing in. Pause and exhale. Now gently raise it up, pull it back slightly, and just allow it to drop down. And you find yourself, your back is now perfectly straight. Right? So this is how you can straighten your back using a shoulder exercise in a very natural way without exerting much effort. You don't have to use muscle to straighten your back. Most people make the mistake. When we say straighten your back, what do? They use their shoulder muscle to pull back and straighten the back. That is not good, because when you use your shoulder muscle to pull back and straighten your back, you are now very tensed. And if you try to meditate with that tension, then you will find yourself getting tired or experiencing some kind of pain, right? So first, I hope this exercise helps, right? And for those of you who try this and it doesn't seem to work, okay, you don't have to do this, then you find another way, whatever way it is that you straighten your back. But I assure you, if you try this out properly, give it a chance, and you will realize this actually works. It allows you to straighten your back very gently and naturally without exerting tension. It's just a simple little shoulder exercise. And it also loosens your shoulder. So now your shoulder is feeling very loosened, supple, and soft. Then you can meditate longer, right? Next, when you have now straightened your back and sit in a comfortable posture, you need to now release tensions in your muscle. There are many muscles throughout the body, and we need to just scan through it, right? Starting from the scalp, right? And then to the forehead. When you sense there's any tension, just consciously release the tension. If you feel your forehead a bit tense, just release the tension. And eye socket, if you feel the eye socket is a bit tense, just release the tension. And your cheek, release the tension. That's one group. The next group is the jaw, the teeth, and the tongue. So now if you feel that the jaw is all tensed up, just release the tension. Sometimes teeth are clenched and biting against each other, release the tension. Sometimes your tongue is pressed hard up against the palate, just release and gently touch the upper palate. You know, your tongue can be touching the upper palate, but not press against it. So this is your upper palate. Your tongue can be just touching it. It's okay. Whereas when we are tense, the tongue is pressed hard against it. So release the tension. And then your neck and your shoulder, just roll it a little bit and release your tension. You have already released it on the shoulders. Now you release it on the neck, right? So this next part is the shoulder and the neck and your upper torso, right? So just allow your upper torso, your shoulder to drop down and just relax. And then your chest, if you feel your chest is a bit tight and tense, just relax and release the tension. And your stomach, sometimes your stomach is all clenched up, and abdomen, just release the tension so that now you feel much more relaxed. Similarly, you start to work on your arms, right? Your arms and your hand. So just release the tension, and your palm and your finger, just let go the tension. Now, how do we place our hand? It's really up to you. There is no fixed way of putting the hand. Of course, in a lot of images, you will see right hand over left with the thumb. Well, if you find that comfortable resting on your lap, then fine, do that. Some people like myself who is a bit broad, that is not a very comfortable thing. I would just rest both hands on the lap. So you can rest both hands on the lap facing up, or you can rest them facing down, or if you want, just gently one on top of the other. You may or may not need to join your thumb. It's up to you. With whatever you find comfortable, whatever is relaxing for you. You have to find your own groove. You have to find, your own flow. How you feel it is comfortable and relaxing. So how you place your hand, it is not important. Like Bhante said, it is not about the body. It's about cultivating the mind. As long as, importantly, two things: your body must be relaxed and your back must be straight. And that's all there is. Straighten your back, relax your body, and all this will help to relax your body. And then, of course, the lower back and the buttocks, your sitting bone contact, your thighs. Now, the thigh is very important, especially those who are sitting on the floor. Sometimes your cushion might be a bit too hard or too soft, then your thigh will get very tired, right? On those sitting on the chair, like I said, don't sit on a chair with very soft cushions. Then your thighs will get very tired. And those of you who might be a bit on the short side, so when you sit on a chair, let's say you meditate on a chair, then your legs might be a bit short because you may not be a very tall person. Let's say if your height is below 5'4", let's say you're 5 feet or 5'1", 5'2", usually the chair might be a bit high, so your lap will be pointing down, and that's not good. Put something underneath so that your lap, right, your thigh is horizontal. So place something so that your feet is rested on it and keeping your thigh horizontal, right? If your thigh is drooping down, it can be very tiring on the bottom side of your thigh. If your thigh is pointing up, in the case of a very tall person, then the back of the backbone might be very tiring. So for tall people, you might need a higher chair, right? If you want to meditate on a chair. For short people, you might need to have something where you rest your feet so that your thigh is not pointing down, but horizontal. Okay. And then finally, your knee and your calf and your feet and your toes. Just when you sense there is any tension, release the tension and relax. So that will make you feel very relaxed, and then you are ready to meditate. Right? So these are all very helpful hints. Now that you have relaxed the body, straightened your back, the next thing you need to do is to beware. Right? Now I want to explain to you this thing called the reticular activating system. This is a part of your brain. I'll just go through this. Reticular activating system is in the brain. There is a set of neurons, the reticular formation. It is the longest set of neurons in the brain that stretches from various parts of the brain straight down your spinal cord, okay, to various parts of your body. So this reticular activating system, or RAS, regulates between three things: between relaxation, arousal, and sleep. Right? It regulates between these three, switching between the mental states of emotional, reactive, stress, arousal, agitation, tension. The second one is relaxation, alertness, what we call in the zone. And the third one is falling asleep. So in other words, it is sensing what's going on in your body, sending signals to your brain, causing your brains to react in a certain way. So this emotional activation arouses the amygdala and causes hormones to be released and cause you to be emotionally reactive. So you must not have any tension in the body. That's why you need relaxation, conscious relaxation. Otherwise, tensions in the body can trigger emotional activation. So you have to be aware because of this reticular activating system. And conscious relaxation activates the opposite, the parasympathetic nervous system, which leads to a relaxed state. Right? Now, you have to be careful. This relaxed state can also go wrong if you are over-relaxed, meaning you lean your back on the back of a chair. So in other words, you put a cushion at the back and you lean against the back of a chair. Now you're feeling very comfortable. Sure, but that will trigger sleep. Why? You see, reticular activating system is the set of nerves that go throughout your body and senses various parts of your body. So when you have a cushion, a back, and you are leaned against the back of a chair, it senses that you are now ready to sleep. That's what it's trying to sense. It's the same as lying down. That's why if you try to meditate lying down, very likely you're going to fall asleep. So if you have cushions at the back and you lean against the back, chances are it will trigger this reticular activating system, sending signals to your brain and say, it's time to sleep. And then you get very drowsy, you get very sleepy. So therefore, it is very important to realize this reticular activating system will react in three different ways. Emotionally reactive because of tensions, consciously relaxed and alert because of relaxation, or sleep and rest state. That means over relaxation, over relaxed, then you become sleepy and drowsy if there is too much of signals that it's time to sleep, like leaning against a cushion at the back. So never put something at the back and lean against. Don't do that. So this is why, realizing this, now you know, do not do that. Do not put cushion at the back, lean against the wall and say, I'm going to meditate. Most likely you're going to doze off. You will experience sloth and torpor, right? Tina mida. You're going to experience that. So emotionally reactive is udacha kukucha. And sleep state is tina mida. So you are actually triggering the five hindrances, right? So you need to consciously relax by straightening your back and then commanding various parts of your body to just release the tension. And then you are in the state where you are in the zone. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Now you know why. Do not be too tensed and do not be over relaxed when you try to meditate. Now you go to your breathing. Consciously allow breathing to slow down, which helps to relax the body and calm the mind. But do not exert effort. The key word is allow. And allow using LSD breathing. L for long. That means you slow down your breathing, take longer, 4 to 5 seconds each way. That means breathing in 4 or 5 seconds, breathing out 4 or 5 seconds. If you're doing this for the first time, 4 seconds is fine, because we normally breathe much less than that. Ask yourself now, as you are breathing, what is the rate you're breathing? Most people right now are breathing 2, the most 3 seconds each way. Now you lengthen it a little bit to 4 or 5 seconds. If you are doing it for the first time, 4 seconds is fine. So allow the breathing to go longer, and then as it goes longer, then slow it down by letting it flow smoothly. So allow it to flow naturally and smoothly. And then only when it is slow enough, you begin to take deeper breath. So let's try that. First, as you breathe in, just allow it to go longer. Breathing in 4 seconds, and then breathing out 4 seconds. Breathing in 4 seconds, and then breathing out 4 seconds. Just allow that. Do that. Do it on your own, at your own pace. Allow it to go a little longer first. First, allow it to go longer. And after a while, I'm going to speed this up a bit. Otherwise, it might take 10 minutes. So this can take a few minutes. It is not something you can do within 1 minute. It might take 3, 4, or even 5 minutes for your breathing to normalize to slow breathing. You want your breathing to become natural and slow. That's important, because that slow breathing will activate this parasympathetic nervous system in your body, make you feel very relaxed and not tensed. So just allow it to slow down. And as it slows down, let it flow naturally. And as it flows naturally, after a while, then you begin to take slightly deeper breath. Breathe in a bit more. And then when you release, release a bit more. Don't overdo it. Don't exert. Right? The key word is allow. Do not exert effort. Just allow. Let it flow smoothly. So this is how we practice LSD breathing. The key word is allow, and not exert effort to force it. Don't force it. If you can, allow it 4 seconds. And once you practice this for some time, make it 5 seconds, right? And when you become very good at it, if you have done this many, many times already, you can even stretch it to 6 seconds. Depends. In my case, most of the time I do 5 and sometimes 6 seconds. I don't do longer than that. There's no need to go longer than that, because this is a natural process. Naturally, we don't normally breathe longer than that. In a very natural way, 5 seconds to 6 seconds is pretty good already. Okay? So I hope that is clear now with this breathing. Now, we come to the point that when you begin to meditate, you may experience pain. You may experience tensions causing various pains and whatever. So listen to what Bhante Pudanji has to say about this. Give me a second while I start the video. So Bhante basically was saying that if you learn to relax properly, you will less likely feel the pain. Okay, there are a number of reasons why pain arises. One of them is your sitting posture. If you are not sitting properly on top of your sitting bone, then you will get a lot of pain in the pelvic region and in the buttocks area. Okay. And another is the position of the posture, the position of your thighs. If a person who is short, so your thigh is pointing down, right, instead of horizontal, then you will get a lot of pain underneath your thigh, right? The lower part of your thighs. If you're a tall person and you're sitting on a chair that is a little bit not high enough, your thigh will be pointing up. Then you get a lot of pain at the back of the thigh, right? At the far end of the thigh. So there are many reasons why you get pain. So sitting posture is one of them. Sitting on the sitting bone, right? Another is that you didn't straighten your back properly. You apply tension to straighten your back. So now you have a lot of tensions in your back and your neck. You will get a lot of tensions in the shoulder, and then you start to feel some pain in your shoulder, right? And another is people who are on the large side, like myself. Okay, people who are on the large side and they try to force themselves to meditate by sitting on the floor. Then they will, when they cross their leg, people who are very chubby and they try to cross their leg, they will get a lot of tensions around the leg area because their body structure is not designed to meditate on the floor. It's better for people who are large. If you have a lot of experience, a lot of pain, there are large people who don't experience pain when they sit on the floor to meditate. But if you're large and you experience pain, then try to meditate on the chair. That could help a lot. Try that first, okay? And also some people who don't put enough cushions, too many or too few. So, large people who want to meditate on the floor, they might need higher cushions on the floor, right? Because the body size is bigger, the thighs are thicker, so you might need more cushions. So all that make a difference. The way you place your hand. Now I want to give you an example. I once went to a place, I won't mention the place. I went to a place and gave a Dharma talk in the Philippines. And this is a group of people who meditate regularly. Well, they try to. And then somebody point out to me and say, oh, this particular brother, he's a very good meditator. He's an excellent meditator. So I wasn't there to talk about meditation. So I was just talking about other things, some Dharma sharing. But we spent the last 15 minutes doing simple meditation so that we end the session with a simple meditation session. And I saw this person, people say he's a very good meditator. And what did he do? He sat very perfectly with the perfect full lotus on crossing the legs and full lotus. That is fine. That is great, because Bhante did say that if you sit in a lotus pose, then you're more likely to keep your back straight and you're more likely not to topple. So you can be very steady. And that is a good thing. However, I saw the way he placed his hand. Normally, the hand would be rested on the thigh, right? Lap, right? And it could be right over left, like that. But what I saw him do was his hand was actually halfway up his body. So it is actually mid-air. It is not rested on the lap. And I could see from the way he was pressing his hand, very tensed. His hands were very tight and very tense. I could see even the tendency, I could see the tension in his hand. And I'm puzzled. Why are they saying that he's such a good meditator? Because he made himself look like a statue. That's why. The way he sat in this very strong and tight pose, he really looked like a statue. And that's why people thought, oh, he's a very good meditator because he sat like a statue. Right? So meditation is not about sitting like a statue. Meditation is about relaxing and at the same time straightening your back and then stilling the mind. Meditation is about developing the mind. It's not about perfecting the body. Right? So that is an important point I would like to say. So basically, there you have it. These are all the techniques and tips. I hope that question has been answered. The 4 steps, and then only when you have finished number 3, allow the breathing to slow down. Now you're ready to bring your attention inwards. And for those who are novice or early stages in learning meditation, better to do it with your eyes closed. And there is a meditation technique called open awareness, where you leave your eyes open, but that is not so much for the beginners. That's for people who have already tried out meditation for some time. Now they want to train their attention, right? Train their awareness and attention. Then they will do this open awareness, okay? So close your eyes and bring your attention inwards and observe the breathing. Don't control the breathing, just observe it, right? By this time, don't try and breathe slower yourself, because you are already breathing slower naturally, okay? So there you have it. These are the 4 simple steps to prepare for meditation. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you very much. And you can download all the slides from this link, tiny.cc/QAFORUM4. So please access this link. If you have any questions, you can post them underneath today's sharing, or if you have something that you need more elaboration, give me a good example what it is that you want me to elaborate on by sending me email or messaging me through Facebook. Right, so that is the end of my sharing. Thank you very much for your attention. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So we have spent the last 90 minutes, 1.5 hours together, sharing the Dharma, and hopefully we have all benefited from it. I too have benefited from sharing this time with you. And we have from this wholesome act, we have accumulated much merits. But there are a lot of people suffering around the world, people affected by the coronavirus. So let us all now put our palms together and share the merits with all the people who are suffering from coronavirus pandemic. Okay, let's recite together. We dedicate the merits we have acquired from sharing the Buddha Dharma to all beings affected by the coronavirus around the world. May suffering beings be suffering free. May the fear-struck fearless be. May grieving beings shed all grief. May all beings find peace and relief. By the grace of the merits we have acquired, may we never follow the foolish. May we follow only the wise until we attain the highest and most supreme bliss of Nibbana. Idang me nyati nang hotu, sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu, sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu, sukita hontu nyatayo. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much. I wish you all well. Please stay safe, and may you be well, comfortable, peaceful, and happy. Have a good evening. Thank you for joining us. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.